What's up, Gally?
What's up? What's up? All right. What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today we've got an epic interview lined up with my buddy Mike Demarais. Hope I said that right. From Rainbow Wallet. Mike, what's up?
Demarais.
Demarais.
What's up, Gally? My name is Mike Demarais, but it's cool. Don't worry about it.
Welcome to the show, Mike. And so Mike is, I think I met you a couple years ago in the crypto scene. Last time the crypto bubble was really taking to new heights. You're a developer. You've been working in the Ethereum platform. You're a co-founder of a company called Rainbow, which is an Ethereum wallet app, one of the best in the biz. We're going to get deep into that later. But I really just wanted to have you on the show and catch up about crypto because I feel like it's been so long since I almost thought about Ethereum. I'm so embarrassed. Like I was so into it and obsessed.
Yeah, bro,
we had the run.
You sold the bottom.
I sold the bottom, bro.
I remember it. Yeah.
I bought Tesla though, so it's all good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
But anyway, so for those people who don't even know about it, like what Ethereum is, this idea of the decentralized kind of Bitcoin, but it's a computer network. Could you give us a rundown of how would you describe the Ethereum network?
Yeah, I think that it's like really helpful to contrast Ethereum against Bitcoin. So you can think about Bitcoin, right, as digital gold. I think that most of your followers are pretty familiar with the concept of Bitcoin, right? But in the end, Bitcoin is kind of, it's kind of like a pet rock, right? Like it's kind of like this number, right? It's a really great pet rock that you can like send around, right? Like, and I'm saying that obviously I'm joking, right? I love Bitcoin, but it's actually pretty scoped in its functionality. That's one of the pitches for Bitcoin. But what Ethereum is really more of a platform. So Ethereum is like truly programmable money. So whereas Bitcoin, Bitcoin's expressiveness is very limited when it comes to the types of things that you can do with as far as like actually programming the flow of capital, right? So Ethereum's really cool because you can actually deploy complex applications completely on chain. What's really exciting right now is like a lot of people have been running with that and building out what is called DeFi, right? So DeFi is basically decentralized finance. So a lot of the times these different protocols being built on Ethereum resemble traditional financial instruments found on like Wall Street. But additionally, like there are a lot of new innovations that basically are taking advantage of the new opportunities of Ethereum, like the platform, and creating kinds of new financial instruments that previously didn't exist on Wall Street. It's really awesome.
And I want to dive into what you said there about how it's a lot more versatile than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was almost the first crypto thing, and it was a cryptocurrency. And then I remember, I'm blank on his name, Chris Burninsky, I think, who used to work for ARK, wrote the crypto asset book. And then I love that book. And he started describing Ethereum as a crypto asset. And this whole, Bitcoin's like, almost like when I think of EV batteries, like you can design a battery to be really good at one thing. Like Bitcoin's almost a cryptocurrency. It's really designed to be easy money that you store digital gold, but it can't do much else. It's simple. And like you said, that's what makes it great at what it is. But Ethereum is this different concept of, it's not really a store of value or currency. It's a crypto asset. And the asset that's backing it isn't just a pet rock of nothing. It's actual computing power. Like you can spend you can basically like spend your Ethereum as gas to process transactions. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but the other thing I wanted deploy contracts and the smart contracts. That's what I wanted to get to. Maybe you could break down a little of that, because that seemed like kind of the breakthrough of what Ethereum's like secret sauce is that can let it do so much, is this smart contract functionality.
Well, so first of all, I want to say like there's huge differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum from, I guess, like assessing it as an asset. I think that rightfully so, a lot of people look at the monetary policy of Ethereum and are a little bit put off by it. I guess like in contrast to Bitcoin, there's extreme clarity around Bitcoin's monetary policy and basically the reasons why Bitcoin should be valuable. Now, for Ethereum, it's a little bit different, and some of it is a little bit speculative. So for example, there are a lot of things being done that will likely improve the monetary policy of Ethereum. So for example, there's this proposal in Ethereum, the way that new things are added are through EIPs, Ethereum improvement proposals. So basically there's this one proposal called EIP 1559. And what that does is actually, the idea there is to actually burn the ether that is used in every transaction. So if if you're paying gas for a transaction, currently that goes entirely to the miner. In this proposed system, basically that ether gets burnt. So what that ends up doing is actually creating a deflationary. It turns Ethereum into a deflationary asset, because basically, like, with the current network utilization, more ether would be getting burnt than is being issued through mining rewards.
I've noticed that it's kind of been a slow and steady but decreasing dilution of Ethereum. And I remember in the early days, it was like people would go up to conferences and ask like Vitalik and all these people, like, what's the plan? How much are we going to dilute? Like, they don't even know. You know what I mean?
Right.
It felt like it was so early that they were like, they weren't even thinking about it like this. And
yeah,
so now
I think Yeah, no, it's definitely been the case. It's definitely been something where you are definitely putting your faith in the nerds, right? To basically to figure it out. And I'm been in this space for a couple of years now, and I gotta say that, like, this space is full of the smartest people who, like, who want to see all of this succeed, right? And I think that Ethereum's plan in general is kind of like trying to they're coming from the perspective of not trying to, like, make decisions that box themselves in. So I think that it's pretty smart. So yeah, wait, you asked me about smart contracts though, and I got a little diverted. So
yeah, no, that
what's
happens.
up? What do you want to know?
So, well, the smart contract to me, like you said, programmable. Like the smart contract it's like a piece of code that's on the blockchain that will get executed autonomously via this decentralized network. And that means you can code it not just to send it to another account, which is what Bitcoin does, but we can like run all these complex applications on Ethereum. So it's a little bit over my head, but I'm kind of curious if you could kind of break this down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, writing smart contracts is actually pretty simple. The programming language is very accessible to people, especially if they're familiar with languages like JavaScript or Python. So it's really easy to get started. But yeah, you can think about smart contracts as basically applications that live on the blockchain. So the Ethereum virtual machine is Turing complete. So what that means is you can actually write, like, arbitrarily complex applications that live on chain, right? So the advantages of this. So one of the big, I guess, differences in writing applications for Ethereum versus like any other software is this concept of liveness. So basically the idea is like, when you write a smart contract and you deploy it to the chain, it is always alive. Like, it will exist forever. And that concept doesn't really exist in other types of software development, right? Like, basically, like, it's expected that AWS goes down, or like that when you write a smart contract, we can get into like the nuances of it later, but basically when you write it and you deploy it, it's there, right? So it's done. So it does force developers to kind of, it puts a certain responsibility on developers to be extremely conservative and kind of like, cautious when they're writing their code. And you might hear about a lot of some of the the unfortunate hacks or exploits that happen in the space, and that often comes from overly complex code or like unaudited code, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, we can get into some of the more exciting like examples of smart contracts, but I mean, yeah, the possibilities are straight up endless.
Yeah, and I'm so curious of why does the world need a decentralized computer that can do this? Like, I'm curious, like, you're as a programmer, you were fascinated by this and like latched onto it, wanted to get involved, thought it was so cool. Like, what gets you so pumped about why this has potential and why the world needs this sort of decentralized smart contract system?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, for me, it comes down to permissionlessness, right? So it's the idea that basically anybody in the world can create an application that touches value now, right? So think about it, like, basically, we can get into the concept of stable coins in a bit, but basically stable coins are tokens that are, pegged to $1. So if you think about it, right, like you can be a 14-year-old kid and develop an app like Venmo, or, you know, with the complete functionality of Venmo without anybody's permission. You can just do it by yourself in your bedroom. There's no like, you know, there's no like licensing, there's no like process, right? So that is exactly why it's so important. Just the idea that basically like just unbounded potential for innovation. Besides that, decentralized applications are a disintermediating force, right? So basically like it cuts out middlemen almost like fundamentally. So like, you know, for example, you know, we're recording this right now. It's a very volatile day in the crypto markets. And if you go open the Coinbase app right now, it's down, right? So Coinbase is down. But Uniswap, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which is a decentralized crypto asset exchange, Uniswap can never go down. You know, fundamentally, it's impossible for Uniswap to go down. So that's a big reason why these things are important. Essentially, like resiliency. You know, for such core infrastructure, it's really important for core infrastructure, like of the financial system in general, to have that kind of resiliency.
And one of the most interesting projects that comes to mind with the stablecoins is Maker, which I invested a little in and have been holding, which is this concept of like a stable coin that's backed by a basket of assets, kind of like the US dollar was backed by gold, but the holders would vote on those assets. And it was just such a cool out there idea. And I think even led to Facebook doing Libra, which was kind of their own version of a crypto stable coin. So I don't know, I see that as still one of the most promising applications on Ethereum, or like leading usage. Back in 2017, 2018, I feel like a lot of the things getting developed on Ethereum were almost like tests or toys, versus Bitcoin that really had like a real world application of moving money. If you're in a third world country with a destable currency, this is already more stable and a really, it was gaining real traction, moving billions with a real world application. We had Crypto Kitties, which I love, like cool games that were working, but I'm curious now of what kind of projects really excite you about the Ethereum network these days? And what have you seen kind of take off since that early wave?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I agree. Back in 2017, a lot of what Ethereum was really speculative, and there were a lot of like bad projects, things that kind of were like moonshots that kind of were a little bit too ambitious for their time. Really since then though, Ethereum's growth and traction has been totally organic, right? So I had sent you the website. There's two websites to look at. There's cryptofees.info and there's defipulse.com. Both of these, I think, do a really good job of, I guess, you know, laying out the current, you know, Ethereum network utilization, right? So yeah, back in the day, you know, Ethereum was used a lot for ICOs, things like CryptoKitties. Now, the primary activity that's happening on Ethereum is DeFi, right? So for example, I think, you know, the most interesting case study to look at is actually Uniswap for a number of reasons. So, but just to get into it, basically, Uniswap is a decentralized exchange that is nobody can turn off, nobody controls it. Once it was deployed, it is immutable. So it's essentially like a fixture. It's essentially like a public utility, right? And that decentralized exchange Uniswap has grown like insanely over the last 2 years. It currently has about over $3 billion of liquidity locked up in the protocol. And basically like every day competes with the daily trading volumes of Coinbase. I think that, you know, regularly it beats Kraken and Gemini's daily volumes combined, right? So that's like wildly impressive. So that what we're talking about here is a smart contract that can't be turned off. Nobody can tell you not to use it. And there's literally no permissions to using it, right? So you can create a token like Galley Coin. Like you can create it today and you can list it on Uniswap and immediately have a liquid market for the token that you just created with no permissions. No one can stop you from doing that. So what that's ended up doing is creating like it's enabled a lot of innovation. So in the past, like if you created a new token for whatever reason, the process of getting liquidity for your token was like really complicated and expensive. So you would have to go to like centralized exchanges like Binance, and essentially like what you would have to do is essentially like bribe centralized exchanges. You'd have to pay them a fee
to get them to list you, right?
To get your thing to be listed, right? So now that's essentially like, right, like table stakes. Like you get that for free with Uniswap.
Is most of that traction people buying other like ERC20 tokens on Uniswap?
Yes. So it's basically Uniswap is all ERC20 tokens.
Can you explain what that is if people don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest, I guess, network effects that Ethereum has going for it is its really robust token standards. So what does that mean? There are a number of like specifications for how to create a token, right, that follows a standard. And basically, if you follow that standard, your token becomes immediately interoperable with all of the other applications on the Ethereum network, right? So if you create an ERC20 token, that ERC20 token literally works everywhere in DeFi, for example. So it's like it's amazing interoperability. It's like honestly the strongest thing going for Ethereum, in my opinion. So yeah, ERC20 is the most popular token standard. For example, the Maker token that you were mentioning before, that's an ERC20 token. Other
CryptoKitties, right?
CryptoKitties is actually an ERC 721. So that's a different. So there's two major standards: ERC20s, ERC 721. The big difference there is basically ERC20s are fungible. Think about them just like they're what you think of when you think of Bitcoin, right? Where it's like you have a number and that represents how many tokens you have, right? Like I have 5 MKR tokens, right? Whereas ERC 721s are non-fungible, meaning like each one of them is unique. Like you can't have more than one each CryptoKitty is unique. They're not fungible. They're not tradable for each other. Whereas one MKR equals one MKR. Like there's no difference between two different MKR tokens. Yeah.
And so this is a perfect time to bring up Rainbow, which is the startup that you're working on. Actually, my first ever direct angel investment. I was invested in it like, just because I was friends with you, and I was so excited. And I loved when I saw what you were building. It was kind of like we see all this cool stuff happening on Ethereum, but there's no UI, there's no gateway, there's no Coinbase kind of thing to make it easy for people like me, honestly. And so you built sort of this mobile first application that is basically, I think, just for Ethereum for now to transact and sort of be the gateway to all of these cool little projects, which I think is so fascinating. So could you tell us about what you're working on with Rainbow and why you thought that was like the business to create?
Yeah, absolutely. So so Rainbow, what we're building is basically like a really slick mobile first Ethereum wallet. So what that means is it can store all of your assets. So whether they are ERC20s, whether they're ERC 721s, right? So basically end of the day is it's one place where all of your money can be stored. So basically you have your tokens, you have your NFTs, that you have your things like CryptoKitties, et cetera. But it also essentially is your, really think about it like as your passport to DeFi, right? So basically, you can open up, your mobile web browser and go to different DeFi applications, and you can click. There's a button, and you can like deep link it to. You can connect them to Rainbow, right? So basically, you can connect Rainbow to your favorite DeFi applications and basically just like use them all from your phone. So yeah, I mean, it's really important to us. We think that like mobile is like the most important platform. That's where most people are like spending the majority of their time. I think that Robinhood is like, I think really proven that people are willing to do finance on mobile. So yeah, really what we're trying to do is build a product that, makes the hardcore Ethereum nerds happy, but is also like delightful and fun for, newcomers to jump in and start playing with this stuff. I think that like the best way to learn about these new things is to actually start playing with them. So we're trying, we're really trying to like embrace that, that kind of like, fun curiosity, right? So the app is kind of like, the app is really fun.
Dude, and it's beautifully designed. Like even on your normal laptop website, you click with the rainbows, and it's so fun. I spent like 10 minutes doing that the first time I figured it out.
We're all about
like,
delight. We're
dude,
trying to
it's
delight
so
you.
fun.
Yeah.
It looks like it's and that's exactly what was missing. Like I always thought of it as like Coinbase for weird things. Like if I want to trade a limited edition Fortnite skin in the future, that's going to be traded on Rainbow. That lives on Ethereum because that's a digitized asset that I want to own proprietarily, not some IRL asset where I have a digital thing. Like all these digitally native assets, which I see as a booming market with video games and all this digital avatars. And even like another example is this Unisocks thing. Like you told me about Unisocks, which is the official merch of Uniswap. And it was like, you're like, this is a $50 token for these socks that you can do. There's only 300 of them. It's the first like, and we've always been scheming on like, what if Supreme dropped a t-shirt on the Bitcoin? Yeah, because we were always like, dude, what if Supreme or like Nike drops their sneaker on the blockchain, and we've been scheming that. And then you're like, you call me up one day and you're like, Gally, bro, Uniswap is dropping this thing called Unisocks. They're going to like be the first thing to do this. And it was like this token that got ICO'd. You could buy the token, hold it in your Rainbow wallet, or you could redeem it and get this pair of socks. So I Venmo you $60 and I'm like, dog, and you just send me a Unisock to my Rainbow wallet. So it's like literally using this app for this weird Ethereum thing. It was just so meta. And then I'm like looking a couple months later, it's like, bro, Unisocks are worth like a couple grand. Like, I don't even know. It changes so rapidly, but now they're worth like $3,000 or $5,000. I'm still holding on. They bought for $60. They're at $6,000 now. And I got a dividend of 1,000 Uniswap tokens. So this one investment is worth like $60 to like 10 grand or something. And screw the money though. I don't even care about that. I just feel like this is an incredible piece of history of the block, like smart contract defying this product and making it decentralized and tradable. Like to me, this is the most exciting, maybe because I was on the ground floor of it, but like it just hit home so hard of like collectibles, limited edition merch, crypto being the blockchain app for that. Like, I don't know. I'm curious if you have any, like, could you just fill us in on Uniswap? Because I know you'll do a better job explaining it than me, but.
I mean, so I'm fascinated by some of these weird assets that are, I guess, like they're almost like experiments happening on Ethereum, right? And to me, that's like one of the reasons that we built Rainbow is that like we wanted to build something that kind of supported whatever you threw at it, right? Whatever new experiment was happening, we wanted to make sure that you had a product that you could actually, use that with, right? So yeah, I mean, so I guess specifically Unisocks, right? Really fascinating concept. Think about it like Yeezy drops on the blockchain. But really what it is was basically Uniswap. We were talking about them before. They created this merch, right? So basically it's limited quantities. So there's only 500 total socks. They started, I think the listing price was $12 a pair. But basically, the way it works is the price of Unisocks is on a bonding curve. So what does that mean? So it basically means that that there's a scarce number of Unisocks, and when basically the more buyers there are of Unisocks, and there are less of them that are like left, right? Like the price basically rises on a curve. So it's a really interesting mechanism for pricing something that is scarce. So for example, like
perfect for FOMO. That's what I'm thinking. It like inspires FOMO. Just like you got to get in early and then your FOMO keeps building. Like,
yeah, I mean, it definitely has some like interesting, like psychological implications like that. But you can also think about it just like as a better, like more equitable way of doing a Yeezy drop, right? So right now, if you put yourself in Yeezy shoes, right? Basically they, anybody producing like high-end limited edition goods, the creator of those goods is missing out entirely on the price appreciation of those goods. So like, they sell the shoes for $100, all these resellers, they have bots and they like snipe the, the cheap shoes, like when they drop, and then they basically like mark them up and like sell them later on the reseller market. Right. So Unisocks is like a much better system though, than that, because a couple of reasons. Like one, basically the creator benefits from the price appreciation. So instead of like, selling all of your stuff at $12 only to have somebody else profit entirely from the, markup, right? Two, basically it sort of cuts out, at least resellers as a business. So basically like, traditionally like resellers, right, will like custody the shoes. Like they'll buy the shoes, they'll get them shipped to themselves or whatever, right? And then like mail them back out. With Unisocks, you never have to take custody of the physical good unless you want to. So you can just basically trade this like, IOU back and forth that represents the rights to that limited edition
and
good.
it
Does that
floats
make
at the
sense?
market price. Like that's what's so dope. It's like
Yeah,
I have my token at any time. I could cash it in for this 10 grand pair of
cash it in.
socks, but now it's
Yes.
totally tradable and it's sort of backed by Uniswap that it will be redeemable for that. It's so cool.
Yep. Other benefits, right? So because it's an ERC20 token, it's infinitely divisible, right? So basically, in order to redeem the token for a pair of socks, you have to redeem it in increments of, whole units. You have to, redeem one whole token, right? But you can actually go and buy, 0.005 socks tokens, right? So why is that cool? That's cool because basically, you can get speculative exposure to these types of goods, even if they're kind of outside of your price range,
Bro,
right? So
did you
basically,
see?
like,
Sorry, I just interviewed the CEO of Masterworks, which is their IPOing paintings for $20 a share, and I'm like, this is exactly like I think of Unisocks as art. You don't need Masterworks for
I
Unisocks
think
because you could they're
Unisocks
they're
is
already a
so
fungible
far
token.
ahead.
We used to buy sneakers. Like I was obsessed with sneakers, and we would do a deal on Craigslist, go to a park, meet up with a guy. The amount, and we know the sneakers are fake, but it's like this 30-year-old dude who's like, give me the money. And me and like my homies in high school were like, shit, like we got fake Jordans. Like this happened like so many times we bought fake Jordans. Then StockX comes out and you can they verify and authenticate the sneakers. That was totally changing the game for the way all this worked. And then eBay is actually copying them to do that now. But it's so interesting how we've seen that sort of trust system evolve. And this is already a billions of dollars market with all this friction. And so to me, I see like exactly what you're saying. That's why I was fascinated about Unisocks. It's not about the socks. It's about the technology behind this that is going to revolutionize a $5-10 billion market that's been constrained because it's not easy and doesn't work well. And so it's almost it's the lame excuse of like the iPhone, like who knew what would get built on the iPhone? We could have never imagined how much market cap of applications. It's like on this Uniswap platform, every Yeezy drop that happens now is on legacy technology and should be switched to this. It's just going to take time.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, also the Unisocks model solves the authenticity problem as well. So basically, because it's really easy to verify that the socks token that you have is the legitimate socks token, right? You're never confused about whether or not the token that you have is authentic, right? And basically, because the only way to get the physical good is by redeeming the token directly with Uniswap themselves, there's no questions about the authenticity of goods. So I think that that's a big part of what it offers. Additionally, though, I do think that say you're 13 and you wanted to like invest in sneakers, like that's like, that's what you're into, and you want to speculate on different cultural goods like sneakers, right? Sneakers can get really expensive now. Like, the really I think that you're more tapped into that market than I am. But they can
Nike
go for
SB
thousands
Paris,
of dollars.
20K a pair. I wanted to buy them at $5,000. They keep, that's.
But basically, the idea that you can own a fraction of a socks token is really powerful because it essentially lets anybody, regardless of their capital, constraints, actually get in and benefit from the or speculate on the continued price appreciation of that cultural good. I think that that's really one of the coolest things about it. Check out this other project called Zora, which is really kind of running with and there's another one as well called Foundation. But both Zora and Foundation are really running with this Unisocks model, right? So Unisocks was really kind of an experiment that Uniswap did, but it really clicked with a lot of people like me. But there's now basically two whole companies running with this concept, right? Of basically tokenized physical goods. So for example, one of the more successful offerings by them, there's so that company Zora, they partnered with this like Grammy award-winning musician named Rack, or like RAC, and basically they sold a limited edition cassette tape with his album on it, where it was basically like a collector's item, right? Where basically like, you know, if you're a huge fan of this artist, like, you know, there's only 50 cassette tapes available. And it works exactly the same way as Unisocks, where basically you can speculate on the price of that collectible item, but then you can redeem it at any time to actually get the physical item. And that's like was really successful. I forget the exact like the volumes and the price that it's currently at now, but I'd say besides Unisocks, I'm pretty sure that that's like the second most successful you know, experiment in this vein. It's really cool. You should check it out.
Yeah, that's a great head. I'm definitely going to check it out. And it's so, whenever I talk to you, I feel like I'm in the Wild West, just on the
Yes.
early days of something. Like it's all kind of like wonky and wild and you got to do this. Rainbow's fixing that. But like,
But it's
it just
addictive.
feels
Like
like we're
it's this rabbit
so
hole.
early. And I can see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, like this is so, it just, I love the fascination and what you said earlier about really smart people. Like you're one of the smartest computer people I know, and you're obsessed with this. And you're like, you're so like
I'm
that
not.
curiosity from like these smart engineering community is to me like a leading indicator of how promising and cool this is.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that that's really valid, to be totally honest. Yeah.
and so what are your thoughts
Like
about,
it's really good to bet on nerds.
yeah, bet on nerds, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
like, you talk to the people who understand computer science the best, like if they're not on board with Bitcoin and Ethereum, like at least they're fascinated by them, I would say.
Yes.
And like totally. So I'm kind of curious, actually, how has that changed in the coding world? Have you gone from like these weirdo Ethereum super nerds? Are you guys is that kind of going into mainstream computer science? Like how is what's happening on the ETH blockchain kind of thought of in the industry?
Yeah, honestly, it's still super early. So if any of your listeners are like programmers and they're interested in this space, like there's still extremely few experts, right? So like the reason I took the plunge and you know went full time in this space was a couple of years ago. I realized to myself, you know, this is still early. If I get in now, I can become an expert, right? Like there aren't very many experts, right? But yeah, to answer your question, like it's still extremely early. I would say that it has, you know, broadened a little bit outside of like, you know, hardcore nerds. But you know, like it is where the industry is attracting talent from kind of like big tech, right? So it's like some of the more important projects out there, you know, have engineers from, you know, Google and Facebook and stuff on their team. It's attracting a lot of talent from legacy finance as well, right? So it's like a lot of really smart people from, you know, the high frequency trading world, for example, like that kind of stuff are getting in. Basically, like I'd say that right now, you know, in the past it was like extreme cypherpunk nerds. We're kind of now bringing in a lot of like finance nerds. But I think that like this current wave that we're in, like literally at this moment, is going to start attracting a lot more, you know, I guess mainstream technologists, I think, into the space. Yeah.
And as much as that crazy run in 2017, like I think maybe scared some people to Ethereum, like I think net it was huge. Like you guys went from like a
Yeah.
couple bucks a token to like over 1,000. It was this huge run. It got spurred all this interest, all these ICOs. A lot of them sucked, but like the real people stayed along, and then it kind of took a dip, but the dip was way higher than where we were before all of that. And now we're having this second coming where I think of a lot of similarities to Bitcoin. Like the applications are much more robust. The technology has caught up to the valuations in a lot of ways. And it seems like, I don't know, a lot of people got weeded out.
Emphasize that enough.
Yeah.
So basically you can think of the 2017 Ethereum price run up, right, as being almost entirely attributable to the ICO mania. The ways ICOs worked was basically they themselves were little smart contracts, and the only currency that you could use to buy into those ICOs was Ethereum. So people were just like buying Ethereum so that they could get in on the ICO mania. But I can't emphasize enough basically how the space has developed, and like literally the vast majority of the space is like real usage. Like there's real hundreds of millions of dollars going through these systems every day. And if you look at that website that I had mentioned before called cryptofees.info, what it does is it basically breaks down the number of fees generated by both different blockchains as well as different like DeFi protocols, right? And it's important to think of, so when you look at that site, right, what you should really be thinking to yourself is, wow, people are willing to pay money to use this, right? So it basically like, if, it's so popular that people are like, it's solving such a real problem that these, Uniswap, for example, do you have it up in front of you? Like, it must be, close to
2.3 billion of
billion.
1 day fees.
Say that again?
2.275. Oh no, that's million. That's million. My bad.
Yeah,
2.75
yeah.
million of 1 day fees though. But you think about that annualized, what's
huge.
that? 700 million in annual revenue. So that people like valuing this at billions of dollars. You ask how do we value these assets? Okay, throughout the PE ratio, you got to get smart and look at new ways. And I'm looking at, okay, if they're generating this much revenue, like this is real money that people are paying.
It's real economic activity. It's real economic activity. People are using it because it solves real problems, right? We are way past the like empty vaporware stages of Ethereum, which I think you can really like characterize 2017 as a lot of like vaporware. What's happening now is real. It's honestly like the coolest thing that I've ever seen. Right? Like it's more exciting to me than anything that I've ever seen before.
And it's showing ETH at 11.7 million versus Bitcoin at 4.7 million. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah. So again, like the growth and traction of Ethereum as, the primary asset settlement layer is real. Certain days like Bitcoin beats it, Ethereum beats Bitcoin, et cetera. But like Ethereum is like regularly competing with Bitcoin in its daily value transferred, right? So one of the big reasons why Ethereum network fees are like substantially like those crazy high numbers is because of the way that people use it as kind of a generic asset settlement layer. So what does that mean? It means primarily a big portion of that comes from stablecoin transactions. I forget the exact number, right? But it's got to be close to about $50 billion worth of stablecoins on Ethereum these days. Like you'd have to check. It's got to be, I'm pretty sure it's between 30 and $60 billion of stablecoins on Ethereum. Every time you move some of those stablecoins, it costs a fee. But again, it's actually, these stablecoins are solving real world problems, right? So if you're an OTC desk, if you're an OTC trading desk, offering clients exposure to like, whatever, like Bitcoin or whatever, like, stablecoins are solving a real problem for you. You can move, $1 billion in one transaction, and that transaction might only cost you, $5 to $10 in fees, right? Compare that to, bank wires, right? Which basically might take you X number of days. Like these things basically settle with, stablecoin transactions like settle, within like a minute. So yeah, I mean, there's that. And then also basically the rise of decentralized exchanges like Uniswap definitely contribute to the growth of the Ethereum network fees.
And two other stats that I follow, I'm curious if you could comment these, that have made me really more bullish, was transactions per day. We saw those peak at 1 million in the ICO, kind of go back down, and now have been really rising back up to record highs, and even a more accentuated trend with gas used per day, which adjusts for the complexity of each transaction, it seems like. So that's when I look at the fundamentals of like Bitcoin or Ethereum, it's like how many people are using the network, how much money is moving on it. That's kind of the intrinsic value.
Yeah.
So and the other big thing about Ethereum was they couldn't scale much beyond, like the system was breaking at 1 million or 2 million transactions earlier.
It's sort of breaking now.
That. Yeah. Because I know they've been working on scaling it, but I'm curious how that's been going.
So the work that's been done is amazing, and it's about to really come to fruition actually in the next like couple months. Like truly, it's going to be a solved problem. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting to that. The network is kind of getting to that point of congestion again now. So you'll see that basically, you know, to make a trade on Uniswap today, which is an extremely volatile, you know, today is a very volatile day in the markets, that transaction might be pretty expensive. And that's because so many other people are using the network, right? So just think about gas fees as like, you know, Uber surge pricing, where basically like, you know, the more people like, you know, who want to get in, the fees go up, right? So two things. One, the rise of Uniswap and other exchanges like Uniswap definitely contribute to the, like, I guess, congestion of the network. So we can get, I guess, into that maybe a bit later, but I don't know, maybe I should just say it now. So basically, the way that Uniswap works is it's a pool of money where you lock in two different assets at a 50-50 ratio, right? So you might have a stable coin and you might have ETH, right? Whenever a trade happens, think about it like the pools get like a little lopsided, right? So basically, like if you trade a large amount in one direction of that, right, like the pools get a little bit lopsided. Can you like, does that make sense? Can you visualize that? So whenever that happens and one of those pools gets lopsided, that represents an arbitrage opportunity where somebody can step in and basically arb away that that difference in the prices, right? And that's become a very competitive market. Where
And that's an incentive to balance the network. It's a beautiful, like crypto
yes,
assets are incentive systems, which is one of my favorite ways to think about it. So that's a beautiful way of like, it fixes, keep going.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. But it has the downside of basically like it's become so profitable to do that, to arbitrage you know, just market discrepancies, right? That on extremely volatile days, like today, for example, those bots that are arbitraging the markets are a little, you know, they're willing to basically pay as long as there's any profit to be made, they will make the trade, right? So like they're willing to like pay you know, an enormous amount in gas if it does net them any profit, right? So what it does contribute to basically like the congestion of the network. But again, that's going to be solved within a couple of months by some of these layer 2 solutions that have been worked on for the last number of years. But yeah, I mean, coming back to it, so you were saying like scaling, right? How do we solve scaling? So, you know, I'd recommend people to check out Vitalik's blog post, one of the more recent ones about this concept of roll-ups. So basically, number of different scaling solutions for Ethereum, but the most promising one, as far as I'm concerned, is the solution called Optimism. And what it is a layer 2 solution. Do you know what, are you familiar with the concept of like what a layer 2 is? Or like, okay, cool, yeah.
Totally.
So like, if you're from, you know, the Bitcoin world, think about like Lightning Network, right? And like all of the reasons, all the benefits that you might imagine.
Like sacrifice Lightning, right? A little security for cheaper, faster. That's how we really scale, kind of.
Yeah. So most of these Ethereum layer 2s actually, at least the more exciting ones, actually don't sacrifice security. They do a really great job of essentially giving the same security guarantees that layer 1 offers. So here's the exciting thing about Optimism. So with Optimism, if you write a smart contract for Ethereum, you can actually deploy that same smart contract both on layer 1 and on Optimism without having to make any changes to your code, right? So basically the big breakthrough with Optimism is that it supports, as a developer, you can think of it exactly as Ethereum, right? It does everything that regular Ethereum can do. Why is that important? So in the past, other layer 2 solutions were extremely limited in their functionality. So for example, like you use my layer 2 solution and it lets you transact at like, you know, 1 million transactions per second or like whatever, right? But the only thing it can do is trade a token back and forth, back and forth. Like you can't act, the functionality was limited. Like it might have only allowed for simple things like transferring tokens back and forth. Whereas the optimism solution essentially lets you do the same robust things that you can do on Ethereum layer 1, but in this, more, efficient, faster, cheaper layer 2 system. So why is that cool? So it's cool because, a lot of these DeFi projects are likely going to be adopting optimism. So why is that cool? So basically, you can just take your existing contracts like Uniswap and deploy it onto optimism and immediately get the benefits of, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's like significantly increased transaction throughput, like, way more transactions per second. And also like the gas costs are like negligible, right? So it's actually really exciting because basically I see that as a really, a huge step in the scaling of Ethereum. Yeah. So also like one more thing to note here is the biggest power, or one of the biggest things that Ethereum has going for it. I mentioned it before, is the interoperability. So the idea that basically like different DeFi protocols can talk to each other. They're kind of like, people in the industry call them money Legos, right? Like you can just stack the different pieces in any way you want, right? Optimism retains that ability. So money Legos can still exist on optimism, whereas all other like layer 2 solutions have the unfortunate side effect of basically kind of like killing off the ability to compose things. Does that make sense?
And I keep thinking in the back of my head, like, to me, Rainbow equity is almost the fulcrum. This is why I love Rainbow. It's like the fulcrum security of this market. And it's why I love what you guys are doing, because I'm like, okay, Ethereum's like the most wildly successful, like crazy computer science project. Like it's like a project, but it's like, oh my God, we're moving like billions of dollars on this network now. It's huge. Like they're working to improve it as it scales. And to me, it's like apps like Rainbow, it's like you're in the perfect place to just to just garner all of this, improvements that are happening on the network and give access to all these amazing projects. Like it's so cool. Like I feel like Rainbow is in such a sweet spot to kind of capture all this innovation that's happening on the blockchain. And I'm curious, like in that lens, like can you give us stats on Rainbow, like users, or I know you've done like no marketing and have just been like I've been begging you to do this episode for months, and you're always like, we're not ready, like the product's not ready. You're one of these OCD perfectionist product people, which I love. And almost in that time, as this beta in the wild has gone on, you've seen really promising traction on the app, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you could tell us about like the traction you're seeing and like what's next for Rainbow.
So yeah, I mean, our stats are, so right now the product Rainbow is, publicly available for iOS, and we have an Android beta that is like quickly growing its user base, but we currently have invited, I forget the exact number, like, but like less than 1,000 people to the Android beta, but we're going to be opening that up soon to the public. But yeah, as far as stats go, we are, I guess, like, in relative terms, we are very competitive with the other products in the space, like, especially given the fact that we have done no marketing, and we don't do any like subsidies. Like we're not like subsidizing users in any way. Like we're not giving away money or like anything like that, right? Whereas a lot of our competitors do those things. So yeah, I mean, our growth has been like, really strong and really organic. So yeah, I mean, like, what are we doing? So like right now, basically our user base is primarily like people who are already in this scene, who already know, like, what all this stuff is. And we've been trying to build the product in a way that kind of like appeases that audience, but really like, is still accessible to like regular people, because we've always been expecting kind of like what's happening now, right? Like this mainstream, awareness of crypto again. What we're working on right now is what we're calling the Discover screen. So basically, it's like it's going to be the largest update to Rainbow ever. So basically, it's a whole new interface in the app that allows you to kind of explore the best opportunities in DeFi. So what does that mean? So what that means is basically like, you know, DeFi offers, you know, there's a number of financial instruments that are like very worth using. If you're a regular person with this, you know, even small amounts of money, they're like super, you know, compelling opportunities, right? So for example, there's like ways, you know, secure and trustworthy ways to get, you know, 20% yield on your dollars right now in DeFi, right? So like compare that to the whatever APR you're getting at your savings account at your bank, right? That's like, it's ridiculous. So we're using the Discover screen as a way to kind of like lay out the best opportunities and kind of like explore them a little bit, and kind of like, it's really more of like, yeah, like it's called the Discover page because we expect people to kind of like discover things there and kind of like really take them a bit further into the rabbit hole from you know, the simple buy and hold use case, right? So right now the Discover page is primarily about Uniswap pools. So like we've talked a little, you know, I was mentioning before, like how Uniswap works. It's like you lock up 50%, you lock up two assets in a 50-50 ratio. And the reason you do that is because when you lock up your money, you earn fees. So like every trade that happens on Uniswap, there's a very small fee, and that fee is entirely distributed to the liquidity providers, which can be anybody like you or me, right? So basically, like you know, the opportunities to earn passive income by becoming a Uniswap liquidity pool contributor are huge. Like I got my little brother into it. And basically, you know, like the yields, you know, are variable, right? So like the amount of fees that you'll generate are entirely dependent on the trading volume, right? But basically, like, you know, you can see, you know, the expected yields on some of these pools are anywhere between like 7% and like 80% annualized, which is huge.
And I love this product
So
because you're solving that problem of like, okay, I'm holding on these DeFi assets. I don't know what to do with them. There's the
yeah,
UI problem. Like for me, it's like way too much of a pain to figure out how to do that.
yeah,
But if it's a page in the Rainbow app and you guys already show me the best
yes,
ones and I click, like it makes the
yes,
you're just dropping the friction of the whole UI
yes,
of using the ETH network. So I love this. And I think
yes,
it took me a while to
yes,
understand this whole DeFi thing, but like the way you lock up money and earn interest on it. But to me, it's kind of like banks have the fractional reserve system. They lock up money and lend out against that capital, and then they get a
yeah,
fee. So it's just that same kind of system, just
yeah,
decentralized and built on Uniswap, and we are the liquidity providers.
yes, yes. So instead of these like, you know, big Wall Street like market makers basically, you know, profiting from, you know, being, you know, the liquidity source of the markets, Uniswap is essentially like, you know, democratize that. Regular people out there can essentially like earn the same income that that those market makers on Wall Street make, right? So it's like in the Uniswap paradigm, you know, even if you're a billion, you know, some of the liquidity providers on Uniswap are billionaires, like, you know, or, you know, large trading desks, but they have no advantage. Basically, they are in the exact same position that you are, right? So that's really cool. Also, like one thing to note, you were saying like fractional reserve. One of the more interesting things about DeFi is the vast majority of DeFi is actually not fractional reserve. It's actually so another word for like fractional reserve would be like under collateralized, where something is like where,
I like
right,
that
like
way
where
better. That's what we should be calling the banks, under
yeah.
collateralized.
But everything in DeFi, almost everything in DeFi, like the vast majority of like the most popular platforms, they all are over collateralized. So basically, like for example, with Maker, if you want to mint DAI against your ETH, you actually have to like, you know, lock up 150%. You know, you have to be over collateralized. You can't mint more DAI than the ETH than you're given. So that's actually like, you know, in a lot of ways, it's a more healthier system. Like people will argue that it's capital inefficient, it is. But to be totally honest, I think that the accessibility of these platforms makes up for the capital inefficiency, in the sense that like regular people like myself, my little brother, or like you or whatever, like capital inefficiency doesn't matter as much as being able to do this stuff at all, right? Like it's way better to have access to these things than it like like it's essentially like liberating is how I view it,
So cool. And so I want to wrap this up with one question about Bitcoin, just because I'm curious of
Yeah.
in your coder brain. Are you still bullish on Bitcoin? Because I've been watching all the moves where it's kind of becoming institutionalized by big tech. And to me, I'm like, dude, I see the game as being over. I see Bitcoin as already having like cemented itself as the digital gold. It's just a matter of time before this institutionalization kind of plays out and more capital flows into it. And that just has huge implications for Ethereum, Rainbow, like every other crypto app will follow that kind of beacon of Bitcoin. And it's not Bitcoin versus Ethereum. They're kind of complementary of two different, they're two different use cases. I'm curious if that's how you think about it, or like, are you bullish on Bitcoin or?
Yeah, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. I think that like, if you're a high net worth individual, like Bitcoin is the first, it is the most Lindy crypto asset, right? Like it's essentially the first one that comes to people's minds. It's by far that has the strongest kind of like network effects around its brand, et cetera. I expect it to continue on this run up. I think that really this whole like crypto bull market up until very recently, right? Like up until recently, it's been this bull market's been entirely powered by like the global ultra rich, right? Like it wasn't regular people buying into Bitcoin below 20K. It was these like large institutions. It was these like global, high net worth individuals type things. So yeah, I mean, I definitely am bullish on Bitcoin, but I also am very bullish on the future of Ethereum. So like, again, I think that like people really don't know what's happening in the Ethereum world right now, and I think that like it deserves a lot more of a spotlight. For example, right now you can stake Ethereum and take part in kind of like the genesis of Ethereum 2.0. By staking your Ethereum, there's some implications of that. Like, if you stake your Ethereum, you can't unstake it for about 2 years. But the current yields on staking your Ether are extremely high. Like I think last time I checked, it was like 15% APR. So what you're doing, that's like huge, right? Like imagine earning 15% on your Bitcoin, right? That would be huge. So it's really exciting how Ethereum as an asset is going to develop. One thing I want to say about Ethereum versus Bitcoin, right, is when you start living the DeFi life, you know what I mean? Like if you start actually like getting in the weeds, you start using these platforms as actual, substitutes for financial services, right? Very quickly, you start to treat Ethereum as money, the same way that people, treat Bitcoin as money, right? And the reason for that is because, on the Ethereum network, there's no more trustless asset than Ethereum. So like, for example, in any system that requires like collateral to be deposited, Ether is the most trustless collateral. Like basically it is like the backbone. It is like, in all of these DeFi systems, like Ether is the like hard money, the way that like, Bitcoin is hard money, but like in all of the DeFi ecosystem, like Ether is kind of the hard money. So very quickly, like after being like a power user of these things, you start to treat Ether similarly to the way that people treat Bitcoin. And I think that that's really like people are only getting hip to that now. And I do think that the narrative around Ethereum is going to develop pretty quickly, especially with ETH2 coming out, because like I think that institutions are going to get excited about the opportunities to stake Ethereum, because what that essentially does, right, is it turns it becomes a productive asset, right? So if you're a pension fund, you might have a mandate to only invest in productive assets versus unproductive assets, right? So it's like Bitcoin is an unproductive asset. It's like gold, whereas like, for example, like a productive asset is something that pays a dividend. So I think that that's one like real bullish catalyst for Ethereum as an asset class. And then additionally, that EIP 1559, which essentially is like a massive step in improving the value capture mechanism like of Ethereum, right? So it's like that EIP is has the potential to dramatically impact the price of Ethereum, because basically like it essentially like ties network utilization. The more the network is utilized, the more Ether gets burnt, which should have a an impact on the price. So yeah, I mean, again, super excited about Bitcoin. Like, I think that it's really hard to, there's only a couple of Ethereum people who are like vocal, anti-Bitcoiners, but the vast majority of people in the space like fully love, like, respect, understand, like love Bitcoin. But I think that Ethereum is something that people just don't understand right now. And I think that really deserves more attention.
Dude, this last little rant you went on was incredible. And like when I see my investor brain is, okay, the supply concern, the dilution has been a big concern, going to get alleviated with this burn thing and as more clarity comes out about it. Thing number two, scaling with the level 2 solutions. Like these are optimism. These are huge fundamental improvements to the Ethereum network that are going to cause a lot of these concerns to go away, and therefore the value will increase if they can successfully pull them off. And then I'm also like, Bitcoin, it's like your pet rock. Like you can't do anything with it. Although Bitcoin's fascinating in its own way as the global spot price for energy and that kind of lens, but Ethereum is computing power. I'm about that. Like I have literally, if you don't want to buy my ETH, I can burn it and get computing power out of it. And to me, I think of no more relevant asset in the future than computing power. And actually one thing I've been kind of thinking through is the rate of Ethereum increasing is not that much, but the power, like, is it possible that the computing power of my Ethereum goes up as the network scales?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, to be totally honest, like the
or is that not the
computing power,
thesis?
or like thinking about, I don't know. Like, I think that the global computer narrative, like Ethereum as a global computer, was definitely like, the talking point, or like, was the way that it was framed a couple of years ago. But I don't know if many people think about it like that anymore, because in reality, as much as you can do general purpose computing on Ethereum, it's really not, you really shouldn't, right? Like it would be really dumb and like really expensive to do like general computing on Ethereum. Basically like the computational, like, like bandwidth Ethereum has is very limited, in the sense that like, like the more efficient your smart contract is, like the better it is, right? Like the less that it does, the better, in a sense, right? So like, I think of so yeah, like I think that basically like as layer 2 solutions start to come up, right? Like, like the power, the ability for your Ethereum to do more things increases for sure. One thing I did want to touch on though about like, again, like Bitcoin versus Ethereum here, is, so one thing that's like very under discussed in the Bitcoin world is where the points of centralization are. So, right, like Bitcoin is by far the most decentralized asset. It's by far the most like uncensorable asset, right? Like there's no debates about that. But one of the implications of the like, Bitcoin is primarily used on centralized platforms, right? So it's like, what can you do with your Bitcoin? Well, you can take your Bitcoin and like put it on a hardware wallet and like have it at your house. But if you want to do anything else with it, you almost always need to be using a centralized platform. So like Coinbase or Binance, or like, for example, like you can use a system like BlockFi, which lets you like, lend the Bitcoin and like earn interest on it, right? But all of those systems are centralized. So basically like, not your keys, not your Bitcoin, right? Where basically like you're foregoing, the security guarantees of Bitcoin by giving your Bitcoin to somebody else. And the most exciting thing about Ethereum to me is basically like the breakdown of that, right? Like it totally obsoletes these centralized platforms where basically like Uniswap, it, you know, again, is a completely decentralized system. There's no way anybody can turn off Uniswap. When you put your money into Uniswap, you still are the only person who can actually withdraw it, right? Like there's no admin rights on Uniswap, right? So the exciting thing to me about Ethereum is basically like completely decentralizing the financial system in a sense, right? Like where there's basically no centralized central points to failure. All of these financial instruments can exist in a way where basically you are still completely in control. You, the user, are completely in control. You know, your money is your money. It's, you know, you're not really like, you know, there's like no trust involved, right? Like you don't have to trust that Coinbase, you know, is going to be, you know, good or like whatever, right? And to me, that's like one of the most bullish things about Ethereum, right? Like the idea, like, you know, yeah, like if you're a high net worth individual, like you can do complex things with your money, create, you know, complex strategies for your money while retaining all of the security and trust guarantees that like having Bitcoin on your hardware wallet would have. To me, that's really exciting.
That's an epic place to wrap it up. That's so awesome, Mike. Where can people find out about Rainbow Wallet? And I'll put your Twitter below for sure. You're awesome on Twitter.
Yeah.
Rainbow's Twitter, and what's Rainbow's website? I know they can do the App Store, Rainbow Wallet, or.
Yeah. So our website is rainbow.me. You can go there and there's links to both our Twitter account and our App Store links. Yeah. And
are
if
you
guys
guys
want to just
hiring
like search
too?
for us on the App Store.
I'm curious if you want.
I mean, yeah, we're always looking for great talent. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're always looking for great talent. Hit me up on Twitter. You know, we're looking for like, you know, we have a world-class team. You know, we have engineers. We have you know, MetaMask engineer. We have an Facebook engineer. We have an Stripe designer. So we're really like, you know, we're trying to build a world-class team. If you are world-class, hit me up. But yeah, I mean, primarily we're looking for JavaScript engineers, Solidity engineers, designers. And if you're like a really sick biz dev person, hit me up.
Awesome. And dude, I got to give you a shout out for putting me on those socks, because that is going to be like the best investment of my whole life, percentage wise. I'll never, that was just so, cool. And just the way it's blown up, like just how you thought, like it's been so fun and cool to watch. And I'm so excited.
It's honestly crazy.
I feel like you guys made it through that like rough chasm of Ethereum, and now like the fun is really heating up again. And I just can't wait to see what's next for Rainbow and the team. Thank you so much for the time, bro. Really appreciate it.
Hell yeah, dude. Yo, my current scheme right now is getting a box of those Unisocks in the hands of Kanye West. And I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
Bro.
So Kanye, I'm convinced that Kanye West, when he sees the Unisocks and understands the Unisocks, that they're going to blow his mind. Like with like, just like, I feel like it's going to be a creative explosion. Like, I think he will totally get it. Right. Like, you know, like they're the most, I don't know if you knew this, but Unisocks are the most expensive socks in the world by like a factor of 4. So I think, you know, Kanye will get it. So I don't know. Yeah. Like hopefully we get some, you know, tokenized Yeezys pretty soon.
Dude, I love that moonshot. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Have a dope day. We will talk again soon, bro. Peace.
Hey, Hyperchange. Thank you. Love you. Gally, I love you.
Love you too, bro. Rainbow.